Hey, good morning. Happy New Year. It is an absolute joy and a delight just to be able to be together again. My name's Joel, and I'm the senior leader here at New Life Church, and it's just a real delight to join you wherever you're joining us from, whether you're in the UK or further afield, whether you're watching us on your phone or your TV, wherever you're joining us from this morning. It's really great to have you with us together again today. Please join in on the live chat. Just drop in there, say your name, say hello. It's a really great way to connect, and I've already seen this morning a few people have been kicking about a few jokes already with one another. So hey, it's just a great way to connect. And what an awesome opportunity to just remind ourselves that in spite of the distancing and that we are actually still connected. So yeah, just jump on there, say hello, please. Even though we're on lockdown and unable to meet in person, our vision is still the same. Our mission is still the same. Do everything we can to reach everyone we can. One of the things we're doing about that is creating content for children and young people. And if you haven't already seen it, our Superstars videos go out every Sunday morning at 9:30. You can check those out on the YouTube channel as well. And also this afternoon, our youth are getting together again over Zoom. And if you need the codes for that, just contact us and we'll give you the codes. But it's great to be able to offer some stuff for our children and our young people. I'm a parent of 4 myself, and I know that it is not always easy raising children, and we just want to do whatever we can to support you and strengthen you in that mission and that job. Now, we've also got some small groups, and we call them fuse groups, and they're starting back up again this week. And we're just going to play you a little short video, a little teaser, and I'm going to just play that for you now. It gives you a bit more information about what we're doing in this current season.
In medical terms, fused is where 2 separate pieces are joined to make one. In electrical terms, fused is a safety feature. And that's the heart. That's why we call these our fused groups, where those which are separate are united, and it also creates strength and safety. We believe that to grow spiritually, you have to be connected relationally. Our fused groups are a vital and critical part of what we want to be and do as a church. They've been incredibly important, especially this last strange year. We'll be starting back up again on the week commencing January 11th. Like we've done in previous years, we will have a focus on prayer up to the February half term. Over these 5 weeks, we will pray for our world, our country, our town, specifically for the things going on within New Life Church, and then specifically for the things that we want to reach out from New Life Church. You can either join a new fused group, or you can stay in the group that you've already been part of. If you've not yet signed up to be part of a group, this is a perfect opportunity to do so. It's only 5 weeks. Here's what you need to do. Show up, join in, and be real. Details of the days and times will be sent out via email, and you can sign up through ChurchSuite. We're looking forward to all the opportunities that 2021 will bring us. Yeah, there's going to be some challenges, but we can face them together, fused as one for strength and safety.
You can find out more information about the fused groups, and you can even register and get more information, sign online. If you go to the website, nlcletchworth.org, you can check out our website, go to the website there and get some more information on that. We're entering quite an interesting time. There's been so much change this year, so much change. And I know we're in a new year, but we're actually also discovering that we ourselves are in a brand new national lockdown. We're fighting a new variant of this disease, and we are racing to find a vaccine. I wonder if there was some way that we could figure out how to help predict our future. Now, there's lots of things that are out of our control, but some things are in our control. For example, our choices are down to us. And I wonder if there's some things that we could learn, some principles that we could apply in our lives to help us learn how to predict our futures. And that's the theme. That's what we're going to be kicking off this morning. We're starting a brand new theme. We're going to show you just a short little teaser video, and I'll be back in just a minute. They say hindsight is 20/20. I wish in 2020 I bought shares in Zoom. Back in March, a share for Zoom was only trading at around $100. Did you know 9 months later, every share in Zoom was trading at just over $550 per share? See, I wish I had the hindsight or the foresight to take a couple shares in Zoom. But cultures and societies all around the world have tried to predict the future. Water divination, fortune tellers, crystal balls, tarot cards, tea leaves. And maybe you've been to one of those baby showers where you play some of the funny games to try to figure out whether it's going to be a boy or a girl. When I was a child, we used to play this game at school. We had an apple, and you twist the apple around, and every time you twisted it, you said a letter of the alphabet, and the letter that the stem came out of the apple was going to be the first initial of your future partner. So you spin it around and you go A, B, C, D, E. Mine came out on E, so I was glad that I got to marry Elizabeth. I didn't want to wait till Z, if I'm honest with you. That would have just been too long. So anyway, but if you could predict your own future, wouldn't that be really kind of cool? Some of you have actually gotten close in life. See, some of you have said this about your life. You actually said this phrase, I should have seen this coming. You might not have said that about yourself. It's more likely that you have said that about someone else. You could have said about someone else, to them, you could have said, you should have seen this coming. Or maybe the way that you get told it is like this, I told you so. You see, it's like seeing a car crash in slow motion in front of you, and you can see what's going to happen even before it happens. It could be a friend or a colleague or a family member, and you just can see where their life is heading. And it's almost a crash, it's inevitable. You can just see it about to happen. It's like when your friend says to you, I can't believe she broke up with me. And you're sitting there thinking, really? Man, she's been breaking up with you for the last 6 months. Or they're sitting there saying, I can't believe they did that. And you're thinking to yourself, really? You should have seen that coming. Or it's like those people who complain about being in debt. When in reality, you can see that the way that they're spending their money is the only outcome. And you think to yourself, really? You should have seen this coming. Maybe people you've worked with who complain about not getting a promotion and another job opportunity going to somebody else, and they're moaning about the fact that they should have got the job, and you're actually in real honesty thinking to yourself, really? I would not have given you that promotion either. You should have seen this coming. Maybe you work in education, or you know pupils who will complain about the results that they got. And you're thinking to yourself, really? You should have seen this coming. You didn't put in the work that we told you to put in, and that's why you got the results that you got. You should have seen this coming. Or a friend who's on the brink of burnout, and you say to them, you should have seen this coming. I guess if we're honest, it's so much easier to predict everybody else's future rather than our own. But deep down, we know where we're headed financially, professionally, relationally, morally, in our parenting, in our friendships, in our marriage. If you're married, if you have kids, deep down, you know this. And the thing is, people drop hints. Your parents tell us, your teachers, your friends, coaches, mentors, colleagues, people drop hints, but we usually ignore them. And then when we arrive at the inevitable destination, we act surprised and everything's so unfair and all fed up. We have the ability, more than we'd like to admit, to be able to predict the future. That's what this series is all about. See, what if there was some directions that we could all use? Now, you might not yet be a follower of Jesus, and you might just be exploring faith, and you might just be on the fence and be thinking about things, and that is totally okay. Because what we're going to talk about this morning is advice that will help you in life. It'll help you no matter where you are in life. You might not even be a follower of Jesus yet. You might be a new follower of Jesus. But the amazing thing about learning to follow Jesus is it's helpful for life. And this is good news for everyone. Now, I have to just apologize up front because I know we're pretty used to dealing with bad news. And this past year has felt like bad news after bad news after bad news. And so since I know you're so strong and so good at handling bad news, I thought I would just get out some bad news first, and then we're going to move on to some good news just a little bit later. So are you sitting down? Of course you are. You're watching this from home with a nice cup of coffee. Here's the bad news. Most of your personal problems cannot be fixed. I guess this is the point where you turn your TV off, close your phone, shut down your tablet, and just say, I've had enough, and walk away. This is just horrible news. But hold on, because this is so important for life. And if you're younger, I want you to especially take notes. If you feel like you've got more years ahead of you than behind you, I want you especially to take notes. You might need to pause this, rewind it, go back, watch this again in a couple days. I want you to really, really, really catch this. You fix things. For example, the other month, our oven stopped working. The fan was playing up, and it just stopped working. And it sounded like a crow being was like, okay, it was just a god-awful, horrible noise every time we turned the oven on. So I called up the appliance shop. I gave them the make and model number. A couple days later, the engineer shows up, replaces the fan, and he fixes it. It was like brand new. He replaced the part, and my oven is fixed. Here's another example. Just recently, our car had to get fixed. So we decided to reverse into oncoming traffic, which is never really a good idea. Thankfully, no one was hurt except the car. It had an almighty dent in it. The next day, our car insurance body shop approved person picked up the car, and a couple days later, they returned the car. And they returned the car fixed. They returned the car as if it were brand new. See, the thing is, you fix things. You fix ovens, you fix cars, you fix computers, you fix holes in the wall, you fix doors, you fix windows. You fix things. Things can get fixed in such a way that it's like they're brand new. It's like the thing that broke never ever happened in the first place. My oven is like brand new. The car, you would never know anything had happened to it. It's like it's brand new. But here's the important bit. You are not a thing. You're not an oven. You're not a car. God made you uniquely. You are precious. You cannot be unplugged and just have a reset button pressed. You cannot turn yourself off and then count to 10 and then everything reboots. You're not a thing to be fixed. You are a person to be loved. So the bad news was most of our personal problems cannot be fixed. But the good news, I told you some good news was coming. The good news is most of your personal problems can be avoided. I'm not talking about the things that we can't avoid, like a global pandemic that has done a flipping number on us, okay? That's totally out of our control. However, there are some things in life that we can control. You know, life has enough pain in it from the things that we can't avoid. So why don't we learn to avoid the things that we can avoid? This theme is going to explore a principle that Andy Stanley calls the principle of the path. Now, I've got to just give you a little explanation about what a principle is. Okay, a principle is not a rule that you follow. A principle is at work in your life all the time. They are there regardless of whether you're thinking about it or not. It applies all the time. It doesn't matter if you're paying them attention or not. The principle still applies. It doesn't matter if you even believe it or not. The principle still applies. A principle is something that you can't choose to apply or not because it always applies. It's not a rule or a law that you can break. It just is. However, if you ignore certain principles, that principle itself can actually break you. Let me just give you an illustration. There's something called the Archimedes principle. And this applies to you every single time you get into the bath, or have been on a boat, or throw a rock into some water, or go to a swimming pool. It applies every single time. Now, you might say, that's not fair. That is totally not fair. I don't even know I don't even know this guy, Archie. I have no idea who he is. I don't even know if he was even a real person or not. I don't know who this guy is. It's not even fair. I don't know anything about this principle. That's so unfair that it would actually affect me. I could choose not to even believe in it. That's so unfair that it could affect me. But that's the nature of a principle. It's invisible, but it still applies itself whether you pay attention to it or not. Archimedes discovered this principle. He effectively explained why a ship floats and a rock sinks. His principle states, if the weight of a liquid being displaced is equal to or greater than the weight of the object being put in the liquid, then the object floats. If it doesn't, then it sinks. Okay, in simple terms, it's why something floats and something sinks. It's why if you put a baby in a bath, the water only moves a little bit. If you put a larger person in the bath, the water moves a bit more. If you put a very large person in the bath, the water will move a lot more. It is why this Millennium Falcon bath toy floats, and why this stone sinks. This principle of buoyancy has existed forever. It's not a new idea. It existed since the beginning of the world. It just happened to be that in the 3rd century BC, Archie discovered it and explained it. That is the amazing thing. He didn't make it up. He just explained it. But the amazing thing is, they Principles can be experienced and explained. They aren't invented, but they can be discovered. So hey, I tell you what, lockdown, homeschool, I've just given you the science lesson for this evening. When you put the kids in the baths, you can give them a little explanation about this Greek guy from the 3rd century BC named Archie who figured out why things float and why things sink. See, I told you this morning it was going to be helpful. Here we are. We just want to equip you with everything we can do. But anyway, back to the principle of the path. We aren't inventing it. We are discovering it. We're experiencing it. And we're going to work out how it can help us work out our lives. This is a path. It's the principle of the path. It's not a quick fix. Let me explain. When you're lost somewhere and you get, just turned around and you get lost, you've been going somewhere and you get lost, what do you need? You don't need a quick fix, instant solution. What you need is directions. You need to know where you are now so you can figure out where you're going next, how to get to where you need to be. See, there's no quick fix, instant solution to being lost. Don't you wish you could just click your fingers and you get straight back onto that road you were supposed to be on? You just click your fingers or do the Dorothy red heels, click your heels a few times and all of a sudden get straight back to where you're supposed to be. See, life doesn't really work that way. You need directions and you need to make some changes to help you get back on the right track, get you realigned so you can get back to where you want to be. You might even have to make a U-turn. You might have to renegotiate. You might have to spend a little bit more extra time that you hadn't planned on spending to get yourself back onto the right track. So how do we get to the destinations that we want in life? How do we get to the destinations that we long for in our friendships, our relationships, careers, studies, parenting, health? You see, for all of these things, there isn't a quick fix, instant solution. Because you are not a thing to be fixed. There are no quick fix, instant solutions, because these are areas of our life, and we are all on a journey. Here's the principle. Your direction determines your destination. The direction of travel determines where you end up. We get to where we are financially or relationally with our friends or loved ones, parents, spouses, academically, as employees or employers. We get to where we are in life because of the direction we took or are taking in life. All around the world, people go to see counselors and therapists, pastors, psychiatrists, careers advisors, GPs, and friends. And they go to them with their problems, and they want a quick fix, instant solution. Tell me how to fix my marriage. Tell me how to beat my addictions. Tell me how to overcome my anxiety. Tell me how to fix my kids. Tell me how to sort my finances. Tell me how to fix my work problems. But you and I know deep down there isn't really a quick fix, instant solution for these types of things. If I'm honest with you, I really wish there was. It's horrible to see someone that you care for or love struggle and suffer. I wish I just had this giant syringe that you could just stick into situations or stick into people's hearts and just pull that syringe out. And with one mighty pull, you could just take out all of the heartache and all of the hurt and all of the worry and struggle and anxiety. You just wish you could instantly sort of take it out. And I wish there was some way to do that. I wish there was. But you and I know that we're on a journey because we're not things to be fixed. We are people to be loved. And the road to healing takes time. Because you and I know deep down there's no quick fix, instant solution. Jesus knew this too. And if you're not yet a follower of Jesus, this is one good reason that you should consider at least putting your trust in Jesus. Because Jesus knew you were not a thing to be fixed, but a person to be loved. And he knew that life was tricky sometimes. Jesus never promised a quick fix. In fact, he never fixed people. He loved people. Now, he told us a really well-known story, and you might have heard this story before. And it might not be a new story, but he told this really, really simple story. And Jesus had preached this well-known message. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. And a lot of people believe that he repeated this message a number of times because there's a couple of different records of it. And so it's thought that this was kind of his main block, his main chunk message thing that he used to share. And there's this guy, Matthew, who used to be a tax collector, who kept details and records. If you were a tax collector back then, you had to make sure you noted who owed what and who paid what. So this tax collector, Matthew, had become one of Jesus' close followers. And Matthew actually wrote a biography about his time with Jesus and about the life of Jesus. And it's Matthew who records the most detail about this Sermon on the Mount. And at the end of this Sermon on the Mount, which you can find in the book that Matthew wrote, it's called Matthew, and it's in the book of Matthew, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And at the end of this Sermon on the Mount, he comes to this little story, and it's in Matthew chapter 7, and it's verse 24 to 29. It goes like this. It goes, therefore. It goes therefore because it's kind of meaning, because of all the things we've talked about already, in summary, I'm wrapping it up for you. And Jesus says, everything I've taught you already, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, everyone who hears these words of mine. See, Jesus was speaking in a public place. There were younger people there, older people there. There were people that were richer and people that were poorer. There were people that were believers. There were people that were doubters. And Jesus is speaking to everybody, whether they followed him or hated him. Jesus is saying, everyone who hears these words of mine. It's for all of us. See, this is good news for everyone. I told you, even if you're a follower of Jesus or not, there's some good lessons you can take away. And Jesus is saying, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice. Puts them into practice. That means you do something with what you've heard. You do more than just listen. You put them into practice. And so what does Jesus say? If you put them into practice, what's going to happen? Well, hey, you're going to get health, wealth. You're obviously going to have a great big house and a really swish car. You're going to have perfect relationships. Hey, is that what Jesus said is going to happen? You're going to get the best results in your exams, the fix to all your problems? No. See, following Jesus is not a quick fix, instant solution. There's no promise for an easy life. You know this to be true anyway. You've been alive long enough to know that this is really the way life works. It seems to me that Jesus knew that this is the way life worked too. This is another reason to consider putting your trust in Jesus. If you're at a church where someone tells you pray this special prayer or do this special thing and all your problems will go away, you need to find a different church. Jesus doesn't offer quick fix, instant solutions. He does, however, offer an invitation for a different direction. He points the way out. He leads the way out. He goes before us to guide us. He says, everyone who puts these into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. A wise man. He didn't say the cleverest, the smartest, the brightest, the most popular, the most talented. You might have talents. He didn't say the most wealthy, the most resourced, although you might have resources in your life. He said, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man. See, a wise man or a wise woman knows that life is connected. They know that the past is connected to the present, and that the present, what I'm doing now, is connected to the future. A wise person knows that the direction you are traveling now is a great indicator of your future destination. Jesus said, like a person who built a house on the rock. Jesus was someone who knew what it was like to get his hands dirty. I mean, he was a grafter. He's known as a carpenter, and he knows that building takes time. It's a process. It takes work. If we are to be building a life, it's going to take time. It takes discipline and habit and repetition. It could mean saying no to something in the moment for a greater return later in our lives. And in this story, the things Jesus is talking about, the house he's talking about building is your life. To build a life takes time. Your reputation, your relationships, your ethics, your finances. Because Jesus knows you're not a computer that can just be fixed and rebooted. You're like a man who built the house on the rock. What does the rock mean? Most of us aren't building houses. And most of us don't build on rock. But everyone that was there that day hearing Jesus talk knows exactly what he's talking about. Because to build on the rock is actually the most time-consuming, most expensive way to do it. It was actually hard work. And not only hard work, it was harder work. Nowadays we've got heavy machinery and we've got equipment that can help us in specialized building areas, but they didn't have any of that back then. This would have been such a time-consuming, repetitive way to build. And you wouldn't have that much to show for it at first. It would take a while before you actually could show for it. Because over time, consistent chipping away would have ensured a firm foundation would have been laid. So they knew what he was talking about when he said, whoever hears these words of mine, puts them into practice, is like someone who is wise and builds their house, builds their life on a rock. And what happens next? It says the rains came down and the floods came up. Reminds you of a song? But the house did not fall because its foundation was on the rock. And then Jesus tells the story again. But this time he just tells it in an opposite way to make a point. So he says, everyone again, because we all have a choice, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice, decides to think, that's interesting, or that's a good thing, but then does nothing about it, hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice, is like a fool who built his house on the sand. You see, a fool is someone who lives as if life is disconnected. Like now is now and later is later. A fool ignores the signs and the counsel and the hints, ignores their spouse or their loved ones or their colleagues who are dropping hints or raising issues, and the fool just chooses to ignore them. The fool doesn't want to accept the direction that they're headed. The fool tends to think of people and themselves like things. Just press reboot. Just walk away. The fool doesn't realize that no matter where they go, they take their problems with them. They can move house. They can go to another part of the country. But the problems go with them. The issues they had in one relationship can go with them to the next one. The problems they had in one job can go with them to the next one. They can leave churches because of an offense, and yet the same issue comes up again in the next one. And instead of dealing with the real issue, we move on and walk away and move on and walk away, and we repeat the cycle. And sometimes people even walk away from faith entirely because they don't want to deal with the real issues. The fool blames everyone else for everything else. The fool builds on sand, which is quick and easy, and it's not very costly. And everyone listening to this story can predict the person's future. They should have seen it coming, because the rains came down and the floods came up and the winds blew and they beat against the house and the house fell with a great crash. They should have seen it coming. When Jesus finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed. And why were they amazed and in awe? Because Jesus taught with someone who had authority. Not like their regular teachers of the law. He taught as one who had authority. He taught with authority because he knew what he was talking about. And it wasn't just a law and a rule. It was a principle for life. And Jesus is sharing it with everyone. And people are amazed at the authority. As we get ready to close, here's the thing. Jesus was sharing something so simple, yet so profound. If you choose to follow me, you will be building your life on something that will last. You can't change the past. You can't change your previous mistakes. You can't go back in time, although so many times I wish I could go back in time and undo something or repair something. We cannot go back in time and restore what we've lost or wasted. However, the good news is your direction determines your destination. That's the principle of the path. The road that you are on will determine where you end up. The new year is a great opportunity to just take a moment. Take a moment and review the direction you're headed. You know, we're currently in lockdown. Why don't you take this season as an opportunity to review and consider where your life is really at? What are you building on? Who are you following? Whose words are you listening to? Do you think of yourself and your problems as things that can be fixed? Do you look for instant solutions when in reality the real issue is going to take a bit more time to deal with? This new year is a new opportunity. But here's the good news, and it's good news for everyone. If you change direction, things will eventually change. Nobody's promising a quick fix. However, ultimately, it will lead to a different destination. Your direction determines your destination. We're going to close now, and we're going to have a song of worship. And this song is called Build My Life. And while the worship team is doing this song, I'd like you to be able to have some time to just join in, or you might not know the song. The words will come up on the screen for you. And allow this song to be an opportunity for you to reflect where your life is at the moment. What are you building your life on? We're going to keep looking at some of these ideas over the next few weeks. And I'd really love it if you'd join us again and be with us on this journey as we explore together how we could predict our future. I'm going to say a short prayer and then we're going to go into the song. Heavenly Father, I just thank you that you are so wonderful. I thank you that you sent your son Jesus to earth just to help explain and show us what you're like. I thank you that you were just so simple and yet so profound, and you help us. Thank you for that. Thank you for the invitation that we can all follow you. Thank you that you allow us to learn and discover more about you. I just pray for everyone who's watching this morning, that you would be with them, that you would encourage them, they would find strength to make tough decisions in their life, and you would help them on their journey. In your wonderful name we pray. Amen. Let's worship together now.
Every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save.